You arrived in Afghanistan in 2011, and by that point, the conflict in Afghanistan had been going on for about 10 years. So a couple days before you arrive in country, if someone asked you, a good friend, somebody where you didn't have to be guarded in what you said, um, if someone asked you, so we've been at this for 10 years, what is this war in Afghanistan all about? What do you think you would have said in 2011?
Really, we had, believe it or not, we had a history lesson in Afghanistan before we went there. We had lots of training, mostly combat training, but somebody who's a historian came up and told us about all the various occupations of Afghanistan. And I really didn't. I did not have any I had unrealistic. I felt that we're just going there to check the block. Personally, professionally, well, in my life, yes, I'm going to get a combat patch. Maybe I'm going to get a nice award. I will show my ability and they will show their ability of how we act in combat, which is the highest, that's what we do as soldiers. But really, no, I didn't expect that we were going to change anything. I did, and I told my soldiers this. I says, you know what, we're going there and we're going to get out of here. But most likely, if you just read the history, there's not going to be a whole lot of change that we will do. You might make a friend who's a Taliban or an Afghani or whatever, but really, you might taste some food. But no, really, I didn't. I had low expectations of what not only just my unit could do, but all the units that we had over there you could do. And so that was my thoughts because of the history lesson of all the British, the Russians, and everyone else. Whatever they were doing, they all failed at something over there. And I thought, we've been here 10 years and, it doesn't look good at all. Yeah.
Did you happen to see when you were there, did you happen to see any reminders of the fairly recent Soviet occupation of Afghanistan?
Yeah, there were we called them these boneyards of various airplanes and trash from Russia. They would just pile them up and just sit them there. I guess they just to move them. Yeah, we called those the boneyards, and so there was definitely a whole lot of Russian war trash from from that occupation that was there. Yeah.
Do you remember ever having brief interactions with people? You say, look at all that Soviet stuff over there, and so what's the message? What's the message for us?
Yeah. So my interactions with the people that worked on the bases, they were the Afghanis. We didn't go to that type of discussion. We didn't go into any of the philosophy or the politics, or they were there to work and we were there, and they're there to support us as guards and things around the base or doing the cleanup of the bases. But there was no discussion on that. No.
How about with other Americans or other coalition forces when you were able to talk about those kinds of things? Did that ever come up? Like, did you see that pile of Soviet stuff and they were here and they got drained in their 10 years here. We've been here 10 years. Did those kind of discussions come up with other officers?
They came up with me and my soldiers because I wanted to tell them the deal. And we were all told the deal of this historical, while, everything. So yes, I told my soldiers, I says, we're going here, get some college education from your devices, save some money, get your combat patch, do your tour, do your time, and get the hell out of here. Because really, do your job, really. But the philosophy of what we were doing was of the entire, the coalition was really, there was not a whole lot of good history or anything showing that we would do any good over there.
Yeah.
I felt Afghanistan would fall within 5 years. I left in 2012. I felt it went on for more than 5 years. It went on another 10 years, I think, after I left in 2012. But I never expected it to last even that long. That was my thoughts. These people are tribal, okay? They don't trust the next door neighbor. They don't trust. Like, you can get you're in Arkansas. I'm sure you can drive over to Oklahoma, no problem if you wanted to. Over there, they can't do that stuff. They can't just go. They would have to take an armed force. It would have to be a planning exercise to do something like that, because someone's going to kill them. So someone's going to shoot them for some reason. And so if they can't trust each other, how in the heck can anybody really do anything over there? That was my thoughts with interacting with them, as how they were so tribal. And then the history, of course, was just there. I mean, yes. So yeah, so I discussed it with my soldiers, not to have these things like you're going to do any big change over there.
Yeah. What kinds of interactions did you have? There were Afghanis working on the base there.
Yeah, so we had a lot of security elements were on the base. Afghanis, we employed them for the perimeter security, a lot of the perimeter security, a lot of the internal, like day-to-day generator, bringing in fuel for the generators and cleaning up the bases, the porta potties, a lot of the things of that nature. The Afghans would come in and out for the most part, just doing a lot of the menial labor. So when you're on a base camp, that's what we call them, base camps or FOBs, forward operating bases. They've got every service available for habitation, air conditioning, they got supply, water, food, and you had so many different, it's not just there was just so many different coalition forces, people from different countries that were contractors, India, Pakistan, everywhere. It seems like it was you focus on the military, I understand that, but if you're standing in a chow hall line or the dining hall, the food line, half of those people that are in that line are not uniformed people. There are people from different places, contractors, civilians, you name it, that make up part of that base. So there was just a whole lot of interactions with various different people from different countries that were there.
Wow. So in this question, I am focusing specifically on the Afghanis, but you described you've got these folks working on the base, and my mind immediately goes to what I've heard so many times from Vietnam vets, that they've got local South Vietnamese working on their bases, and then you have instances where it turns out that the barber is passing information to the Viet Cong, or perhaps even is a Viet Cong. Did you feel that you could fully trust the Afghanis who worked on the base where you were?
No, I would not trust them. From what I heard is some of the workers that were Afghanis there were trying to make out with our female soldiers, and we were locked and loaded. And the complaints were that the women were like, these people are just going crazy because, I didn't trust them. There was like they did. I heard that they had attacked some females. You see, skin over there is not very well, received. Like, even though I have a shirt on right here, let's just say I'm a female and I have my arm exposed. That's a big deal over there. That's like a sexual, you know what I mean? So they were like, they don't have the access to all the stuff. And so I didn't trust them. No, I didn't trust them. I wouldn't trust them at all. That's, I did not go out and shoot and live with them on the ground to ground basis, but from what I heard, and my response to the people complaining, the females, like, you got a weapon. If they're attacking you, or they, you just put your weapon up at them. But even though they were Afghanis, they were mostly Afghani men there that have never seen skin, a leg or a arm, or they don't see it that often. And so, from what I heard, no, I wouldn't trust them at all. No.
Wow. So what was your job? Were you a major or a lieutenant colonel when you arrived in Afghanistan?
I was a lieutenant colonel in command of a medical detachment. I was combat service support, preventive medicine, food, water, sanitation, inspections of base camps to prevent soldiers from getting sick from their mess. We were kind of like the local health department on these bases. I had about 18 camps out in Region West, RC West, Region Command West, near the Iran-Turkmenistan border, Herat province, Shindand Air Base, Herat. So I had about 18 camps that we would go and inspect and do service support to make sure soldiers do not get sick from their own, garbage,
Sure. And are those bases also those command outposts, those FOBs out there? They're also serviced by local Afghanis who come in and get the garbage and take out the refuse and
Yeah, they're serviced by a number of people, contractors. It could be Afghanis, could be other foreign nationals, could be Pakistanis, it could be Indians. But yeah, there was just, yeah, there were many people playing a part of all these services of these FOBs yeah, FOBs.
And are you going out to these forward operating bases by helo primarily?
Helo, thankfully it was Helo. That was our greatest gift because roads, terrain, the roads, the infrastructure is just impossible over there. So Helo support, and even Helo support was difficult because you'd have these windstorms and these things that come through. They would down. So with a Helo, you don't have to worry about improvised explosive devices. And so, but yeah, my teams would go out and to these bases, remote bases, and basically do inspections and things of that nature. Yeah.
What kinds of things are you looking for? I mean, I talk to these guys who are out in these FOBs and these COPs, these command outposts, and a bunch of 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds out there. So when you're going out there, what kind of stuff are you looking for?
So we would be looking for, first of all, we would go to the dining facility to make sure foods are being stored properly, cooked properly, make sure they have the devices on them, make sure the meat is not too cold, make sure the meat is, we're doing these follow-up inspections behind the scenes to make sure soldiers don't get sick. Going in and making sure the contractors are doing their job, the Afghanis, like the porta potty cleaning, emptying of the porta potties, emptying of the garbage. Is the garbage too high? Is the garbage away from living areas where it doesn't spread vermin, flies, and things of that nature? Looking at living conditions, making sure people are just not too packed in on these tents and things, because being close together can cause problems with communicable diseases. So we would look at the COP, the forward operating base, or the whatever, and we would look at it in a perspective of sanitation and cleanliness, and then we would write up reports to make recommendations if they're needed, and to enforce those recommendations. And I would be the signing authority, the commanding authority to get these things in order. For the most part, I would say we did a pretty good job on that. We had one outpost near Turkmenistan that was pretty bad, but yeah, but for the most part, we would just enforce those standards, sanitation standards.
Which one was that? The base?
Okay, so it's an Afghani BMG. It's near Turkmenistan. It's way up in the rugged. It's an outpost, and starts we call it BMG. But this was a place that was not only being bombed all the time and shot at all the time, but it was in a very remote outpost, and it was hard to get there. Even with helicopter support, it was difficult. Most of their supplies were airdropped. And so this place was overrun with feces and vermin and just garbage. And it was part of my responsibility to try to get the contractors in there to get this thing inspected. So when I saw the report came back, I said, we got to go back up there again. Let's take some pictures, and I'm going to send them to Bagram, which is our headquarters, because this place is just festering. They call it the soldiers call it the land of the lost soldier, or the forgotten soldier. They call it the land of the forgotten soldier. And I said, well, we need to take pictures, because we can write a report, but if you don't have pictures attached to it and showing them the level of crap that they were living in, nothing's gonna happen. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So they sent that in, they got the report. I sent it to Bagram. All hell broke loose. These colonels and generals, they saw my report, and they come down heavily to make sure those soldiers were, the refuse and all the garbage and everything was cleaned up, and they got contractors in there to clean that up. That was like a success story, which really we did very well.
Yeah. Did the soldiers in that particular place, BMG, was their response, hey, we're getting hit all the time, so we really don't have time for niceties like, um, gathering up, being careful with trash and things like that. Was basically what they were saying?
Yeah, it was just they were just trying to survive day to day. Just don't. I mean, you got to think about the combat soldier. They've only got a certain time there, and they're just trying to survive. So that's why we have public health preventive medicine to come in, service support them, and to try. And so it's they're just dumping their meals ready to eat. They're all their garbage, but no one's going there to help them out as far as because it really was hard terrain to get into. I can't overemphasize the terrain because the terrain there is just a wicked type of terrain. And so to get in and to fly, even though we had been there 10 years. I mean, 10 years is a long time. I mean, we call that a mature theater, but still the terrain and the wind, the weather, they had a big vote and how things operated over there. You could be stuck out in the middle of nowhere for a week just waiting on a helicopter. I mean, that would be normal, so even if the helicopter knew you were there, it said, we can't go, we can't go, we can't, so yeah, that's but no, that was the situation there. My job was a commander of the unit. So I needed, I did go out once and I learned that I should not go out because I'm going to lose communication with my people. So I don't remember the name of the camp, but it was out there. I says, I'm going to go out there and, gonna be a hands-on leader, right? I'm going to be out there and do a hands-on leader and just check out such situations. And I learned that, getting there was an event. And once I got there, getting back was an event, and I was losing communications with my unit for 3 weeks. I mean, I was over there stuck out there in the middle of no man's land doing, just supporting and trying to get them. I said, what, let my soldiers do this, but me being a commander, losing contact with my command is not a good thing because, that's just the way. And so I learned quickly that I need to be in Shindand. Shindand is an Air Force base, and the communications are much better there. That was our headquarters. That's where that's where we lived out of. And I thought, what? Unfortunately, I can't be going out, outside the gate doing stuff a lot because I'm gonna lose communications. I mean, and so I needed to be in comms with my headquarters, my staff, my higher, and then also my lower as well. And so that would be the best place for me to stay at. Let my soldiers go and do the work and bring me the reports without me having any oversight at all.
Did the war come to Shindand? I mean, it's a large base, I'm thinking, and a lot of security around it, but did you have fairly regular reminders that
Oh yeah, we had reminders. I would say it seemed to be always incoming rounds would come in between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. Seems like 4 to 5 times a week. Okay, and so these were mortars. They would come in. They were Chinese-made mortars, and they had been, I don't know, farmers or children or people would put these things out there. It was not an accurate fire. It was more like just pointed in that direction and mortar it off. And they were gone by the time the mortar went off. So they were basically these devices that had water dripping. And then after the water dripped out slowly, there was some trigger mechanism which automatically fired it. And they were gone. So they were gone by the time that mortar went off. It could have been a goat herder, or we don't know. I was not in the realm of finding them, and we had other people that would try to prevent that, but it happened regularly. I was in leading up to Afghanistan personally, I had been in some situations. My father had died, and I was grieving my father in Afghanistan. So I was personally in a very low mental capacity in Afghanistan. I was grieving my father. He had died shortly before I went there. So my ability, I didn't really care about dying over there. I really didn't. A matter of fact, I was the last one to walk out of the tent because I thought, you know what, kill me. I'll just go see my father. I'm fine because I was at that level of grief. I had told my soldiers that my father was dying, and but no, but we did overall, we did very, very well there as a unit, and yeah, as far as the incoming rounds, now that was in Shindand. For the most part, it was Shindand Air Force Base. We eventually had to go support Kandahar for a while, and that was worse, much worse than Shindand. But for the most part, Shindand, we were there, and that in that province, yeah.
What kinds of things did you see or experience at Kandahar?
Oh my God! So Kandahar was every day, sometimes twice a day. There was incoming coming in all the time. And it was like Kandahar seems like it was just a circus of trash. Think of yourself like you're in a base camp, and there's just trash and smoke billowing all around you. They've got a poop pond, an above ground sewage system that smelled the entire camp up. So, and you can't get away. I don't. You cannot. Even if you get into air conditioned bunkers, which I did since I was a commander, but I couldn't get away. We couldn't get away from the smell. And that was the city. So it was not just the smell, it was the air. It was just total dust and trash that was floating around.
Wow.
And then at night, that's when everybody comes out to fight. And you would hear these A-10 warthogs just, and they would just be strafing the Taliban. And it was miles away, but the sound just echoed through the night. And so at night it was like difficult to sleep because you could just hear the booms and the bombs going off from the Air Force knocking it to the enemy, and the artillery as well. So it was just a continual mess of stuff. And thankfully I was only there for about 6 weeks, but that was a place where that's when we left, was out of Kandahar. We were happy. Shindand 4 to 5 times a week, once or twice. But Kandahar was mostly all the time. It seemed like it was all the time.
Is it at Kandahar where you saw the Humvee hit the IED?
That was in Shindand. So I remember exactly the time of day. I was walking back from the mess hall. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I saw the Humvee just totally just blew up. Well, I did. At first I heard the bomb, and I saw it was right off so they had a Humvee driving on the outside of the gate, outside of the fence, outside of the border, and the thing just blew up. The thing just was pulverized. It went like way up into the air. And at the time, my feeling was, I'm not going to go over there. They have rapid reaction forces to go take care of these things. I'm just walking, and I'm going to do my job. And I'm not going to any funerals. I'm not going to see any dead bodies. I'm not going to see anything. I'm just like, my thought was, I'll just focus my left foot in front of my right and just do what I need to do and not be distracted by any of the stuff out there, and so that was my thoughts at the time when I saw the Humvee get blown up. And I went about my day and just took note of it, is all.
You've described, your sense of the war, and no sense that there would be anything in Afghanistan that Americans would recognize as freedom, let alone enduring freedom. But did you other officers you talked to, I mean, did you pick up from some that some believe that Afghanistan could become something that, say, people living in Mexico or people living in Thailand would recognize as a somewhat functional society?
No, not at all. Mostly dysfunctional is and we were out there to survive day to day and take care of each other. So politics of that type of mannerism, which we talk about now, we weren't really, we just knew that this was, we just kind of knew that. I mean, that's just something that was, I don't know of anybody really that really thought that, it might be worth fighting. Once you get there and you see it really, and you see the dysfunction, and then lot of us, we've had history lessons or things, so we didn't think at all anything was going to change for anything. I mean, yes, there was a lot of money. So there was a ton of money being put into Afghanistan. So like the Afghanis, the ones that are working for us, I'm sure they're making bank. I'm sure they're getting paid really well, and they're very happy because we're there to pay them. Maybe we paid their bills, I'm sure, very much so. And but as far as and they loved our trash too. Our trash was their jewels. They were proud to have our trash, any type of trash. And so for us, we were like, just for them for a day-to-day basis, Joe. But no, there was really not much discussion. It was pretty much known that this is just another, we're here to do our time and leave, and nothing was going to change. If there was any way for me to go and kill anyone over there and get or risk my life, I would have done it. And the only time that happened was there was a suicide bomber that came on post. I had communications. I had a nipper computer and a sipper. I had a non-secure and a secure line. And I saw where, hey, there's a suicide bomber on our post. And so you don't believe everything. So the first thing I do is I go look for the dogs. They have bomb sniffing dogs out there, and the bomb sniffing dogs have been alerted. Okay, so I think there's something's going on here, and I could see the dog handlers were a little bit more anxious than they were before, and so I locked and loaded my 9mm, and I wanted to go. Hey, you're going to blow somebody up, blow me up, and I'll shoot you before you blow me up. And that's kind of my mind state. So my mind state was a little bit off because of my dad's death, and I didn't I didn't really care to live in a way that was personal. And so I went around and I had my lieutenant colonel rank on and stuff. I said, I'm going to go looking around. I locked and loaded the only time. I said, let's go look for this guy. I'll looking at the dogs, and I'll kind of shadow the dogs in a way, and see if I can find him. But apparently the guy left, and he blew himself up at a different base, which was not too far from us. So, but that never happened. I think more importantly, it was just a downtime for me. It was a downtime in life, but did very well overall. The training of our soldiers before we got there really did a whole lot for us. And then we just did very, very, we talked about that one base camp that was a feather that just went up. And so overall, it was probably the best performance of my entire career was in Afghanistan. It's kind of strange as it might be, undergoing somewhat personal hell. I was able to rise through that. Yeah.